Robbed in the Desert by Anonymous. I departed from Kuma, accompanied by 2 shepherds who were going towards Sibadulu. The road was very steep and rocky, and as my horse had hurt his feet much, he traveled slowly and with great difficulty, for in many places the ascent was so sharp, and the declivities so great, that if he had made one false step, he must inevitably have been dashed to pieces. The herds, being anxious to proceed, gave themselves little trouble about me or my horse, and kept walking on at a considerable distance. It was about 11 o'clock, as I stopped to drink a little water at a rivulet, my companions being near a quarter of a mile before me, that I heard some people calling to each other, and presently a loud screaming, as from a person in great distress. I immediately conjectured that a lion had taken one of the shepherds, and mounted my horse to have a better view of what had happened. The noise, however, ceased, and I rode slowly towards the place from whence I thought it proceeded, calling out, but without receiving any answer. In a little time, however, I perceived one of the shepherds lying among the long grass near the road, and though I could see no blood upon him, concluded he was dead. But when I came close to him, he whispered to me to stop, telling me that a party of armed men had seized upon his companion and shot 2 arrows at himself as he was making his escape. I stopped to consider what course to take, and looking round, saw at a little distance a man sitting upon the stump of a tree. I distinguished also the heads of 6 or 7 more, sitting among the grass, with muskets in their hands. I had now no hopes of escaping, and therefore determined to ride forward towards them. As I approached them, I was in hopes they were elephant hunters, and by way of opening the conversation, inquired if they had shot anything. But without returning an answer, one of them ordered me to dismount, and then, as if recollecting himself, waved with his hand for me to proceed. I accordingly rode past, and had with some difficulty crossed a deep rivulet, when I heard somebody halloa, and looking back, saw those I took for elephant hunters now running after me, and calling out to me to turn back. I stopped until they were all come up, when they informed me that the king of the Fulas had sent them on purpose to bring me, my horse, and everything that belonged to me, to Fuladu, and that therefore I must turn back and go along with them. Without hesitating a moment, I turned round and followed them, and we traveled together near a quarter of a mile without exchanging a word. When coming to a dark place of the wood, one of them said, in the Mandingo language, "This place will do," and immediately snatched my hat from my head. Though I was by no means free of apprehension, yet I resolved to show as few signs of fear as possible, and therefore told them, unless my hat was returned to me, I should go no farther. But before I had time to receive an answer, another drew his knife, and seizing upon a metal button which remained upon my waistcoat, cut it off and put it in his pocket. Their intention was now obvious, and I thought that the more easily they were permitted to rob me of everything, the less I had to fear. I therefore allowed them to search my pockets without resistance, and examine every part of my apparel, which they did with scrupulous exactness. But observing that I had one waistcoat under another, they insisted that I should cast them both off, and at last, to make sure work, stripped me quite naked. Even my half-boots, though the sole of one of them was tied to my foot with a broken bridle rein, were narrowly inspected. Whilst they were examining the plunder, I begged them with great earnestness to return my pocket compass, but when I pointed it out to them, as it was lying on the ground, one of the banditti, thinking I was about to take it up, cocked his musket, and swore that he would lay me dead on the spot if I presumed to lay my hand on it. After this, some of them went away with my horse, and the remainder stood considering whether they should leave me quite naked, or allow me something to shelter me from the sun. Humanity at last prevailed. They returned me the worst of the 2 shirts and a pair of trousers, and as they went away, one of them threw back my hat, in the crown of which I kept my memorandums, and this was probably the reason they did not wish to keep it. After they were gone, I sat for some time looking around me with amazement and terror. Whichever way I turned, nothing appeared but danger and difficulty. I saw myself in the midst of a vast wilderness in the depth of the rainy season, naked and alone, surrounded by savage animals and men still more savage. I was 500 miles from the nearest European settlement. All these circumstances crowded at once to my recollection, and I confess that my spirits began to fail me. I considered my fate as certain, and that I had no alternative but to lie down and perish. At this moment, painful as my reflections were, the extraordinary beauty of a small moss irresistibly caught my eye. I mention this to show from what trifling circumstances the mind will sometimes derive consolation. For though the whole plant was not larger than the tip of one of my fingers, I could not contemplate the delicate conformation of its roots, leaves, and capsule without admiration. Can that being, thought I, who planted, watered, and brought to perfection in this obscure part of the world, a thing which appears of so small importance, look with unconcern upon the situation and sufferings of creatures formed after his own image? Surely not. Reflections like these would not allow me to despair. I started up, and disregarding both hunger and fatigue, traveled forwards, assured that relief was at hand, and I was not disappointed. In a short time, I came to a small village, at the entrance of which I overtook the 2 shepherds who had come with me from Ruma. They were much surprised to see me, for they said they never doubted that the foolers, when they had robbed, had murdered me. Departing from this village, we traveled over several rocky ridges, and at sunset arrived at Sibidulu, the frontier town of the Kingdom of Manding. Note Mungo Park, born in Selkirkshire in 1771, set out on his first African exploration in 1795. His object was to explore the Niger, and this he had done to a great extent when he was murdered, as is supposed, by the natives in 1805.